All right, NFL Week 2, first look here. Going to kind of go through my process, specifically for the first look. The only thing that I don't really have right now is Thorman's D-line, O-line mismatches, which is a big part of kind of like choosing defenses. Um, but yeah, first I like to just look at the whole 12-game slate here. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. Just kind of see if any games stand out, any games that appear to be like super popular, kind of dig into why they may be popular. Obviously, looking at the highest total games, which appear to be one Chiefs at Jags, which I believe is outdoor on grass, Seahawks at Lions in a dome. Those two stand out by far from the rest for me. I know some people will like Bill stacks. I know some people, let's see, I think the Rams 49ers game is kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, I'm usually looking kind of at the slate as a whole, looking at pricing, looking at ownership. I kind of do a lot of things all jumbled together, and it's hopefully comes together. Last week, I guess as a quick review, I didn't think about the slate enough as a whole. I kind of just ran the ceiling optimal, which wasn't that much different than the floor and projected optimal, and then like stacked one game with one piece from it and switched my defense, and it just didn't feel like a tournament lineup. It felt like a cash lineup. It felt like I was just covered across the board. It felt like I just played a bunch of high owned pieces and had to be perfect. I kind of want to think about leverage more. If there's a high owned receiver, you know, I thought about leverage last week on Isaiah Likely and thought I could lean into Likely and pair him with Flowers, pair him with Lamar, have the game go nuts, get the whole game. And so let's say Likely has like an okay game, maybe like 60 yards, 3 catches and a touchdown, right? 15 points. That's pretty good. That's actually really good as a one-off at 3K, and like I'm not really separating from the field. But if the Ravens go out and drop 40 on the Texans and Lamar has like a rushing touchdown, throws 2 to Flowers and 1 to Likely, then I separate a quarterback, I separate it in the receiver position, and then as a whole, that salary that I spent is like pretty points per dollar efficient. So I like to look at the points per dollar values. I like to look at just the ETR metric value. Sorry about that. But yeah, I don't want to get too into numbers in the slate and overs and unders and spreads and just like get too away from kind of who I like, who the projections like, how I can build a tournament like lineup with those combined. So I guess quickly I'll check out this. I really like Thorman's snaps and pace article. Also, I may be playing Gibbs this week, so Gibbs is interesting. He's 6,300 and Montgomery is like 58. And I think the projections are going to hate Gibbs, but I think all of the I know ball guys are going to like Gibbs and they're going to just keep smashing him until he like binks. So it clearly likes the Chiefs, the Jags. Kind of waiting on some receiver news for the Chiefs. Definitely waiting on Kelsey news for the Chiefs. Noah Gray is actually like here in the most routes and like had a couple, and he had some looks that like he could have had a big game last week. I think Noah Gray is slightly under the radar if Kelsey's out. I don't think Kelsey's out. Could be out though. Oh, I also forgot to say I like this game. The Colts at Texans. It's in a dome. A Rich has the Q tag. He's up 1,000. I like it a lot actually, and I like Pittman a lot. And I also like Nico and Robert Woods. They just lost Noah Brown. I like the whole game, not just pieces. Okay, well, shocking. These are my 3 favorite games. So I'm probably going to be picking Mahomes, Lawrence, A. Rich, Jared Goff as my 4 QBs. I think I'm only going to build one lineup this week. Went too big last week, just went insane. So I'll try to mess around with different stacks, and based on if I like them, based on ownership, based on if I think that I'm creating leverage in the field in some way. Like if everyone's on, you know, Goff to Laporta, maybe I do like a Goff to Gibbs, or if everyone's on like Kelsey to, or if everyone's on like a ETN run back, maybe I play like Lawrence to, or if they're on like Ridley and ETN, maybe I play like Lawrence and Ingram, or I like Pacheco a lot in this game. I actually like both backs. I think that's actually doable. Um, there's definitely some risk with Pacheco, and I kind of want to lean into that a little bit here. Falcons, Packers. I mean, I was going to avoid this game anyway. I thought Christian Watson may be interesting, but first game back off a hamstring. He also didn't even practice yesterday, so gonna monitor that. I actually think Drake London is a buy low. He is in the Leone buy low model, but I don't know. I want to play the Falcons pass catchers against like a top 5 offense where they're going to be down 20 points going into the second quarter. I don't really like the Rams. I like going back to the 49ers. However, I like CMC. I like Ayuk. I like Kittle. So I guess Purdy would be like my 5th quarterback. Do not like really this game at all. Commanders at Broncos. If I had to pick 2 pieces, it would be like Brian Robertson and Sutton. Okay, so let's hop into. I like to first just look at all the values and look at all the ownership. So I'm going to first sort by position. And QB, I don't care about as much because I use kind of QB as just who am I going to stack with, what games am I going to stack. But just kind of seeing what the optimizer likes here. Like it doesn't even have Lawrence as a value, but has a 30-point ceiling. Like I'm going to sort by ceiling after this. But so Daniel Jones, 6,000 is really cheap for Daniel Jones. That's actually should be in consideration. And you'll see with quarterback ownership, like nothing gets out of hand. Like I don't even know if I believe the 17% Josh Allen, because that's still really expensive. I think you could spend 400 more to get to $8,300 Mahomes. Yeah, so projections aren't even really liking Mahomes or Lawrence, and that's the best game. And then the second best game, Goff and Geno. I guess just because the prices. I love Goff this week. Probably my favorite play. Him and A-Rich are like my 2 favorite plays for quarterback. It likes Richardson. Never playing Tannehill ever. It likes Geno, just a little bit cheaper than Goff. Never playing Mayfield. Let's sort by ceiling. Allen for the rushing floor. Lamar's at Cincy. It's kind of interesting. Fields, it's just so slow as far as like plays. Okay, so I usually don't care that much about QB. Part of what I like doing as well is I will go like, if I like Detroit, I'll go like the team. And then I say, okay, because sometimes if you run the optimizer, it's just going to mash in the highest points per dollar guy. And so I don't want to miss out on like the slightly lower, way, way, way less owned probably guy. So Amon-Ra, I think I'm going to lock into my 1 lineup. So I love when people say lock and it's like they have, I'm 100%. It's like, dude, you have 1 lineup. Yeah, and I also think Reynolds is really interesting. Reynolds actually may be like a double stack candidate here with Goff. He's just the 2. He stays on the field more than Jones and Khalif. I do need to check snap share though. I'm gonna ask. This is on the fly, so I don't forget. I need to ask Discord. Shout out to Establish the Run Discord here. Going into Draftkings tournaments. What the fuck is this? Okay. Got an up. Says 2 snaps. Share. Where? It used to be on Fantasy Labs. Now we have the solver. Okay, sorry. Thank you, people in the Discord. So, yeah, so I knew the optimizer wasn't gonna like Gibbs, but the Gibbs has no data to really historical data to go off of. They're just basically trying to get snap share and like target percentage opportunities, and it's so fragile. And the coach could just at any moment want to play Gibbs like way more, and you just want to be early because if they play him way more and he crushes, like you're never gonna get him at lower ownership. Also, even though he's not projecting as that good of a value, he's projecting as a huge leverage piece off of Montgomery, right? You pay up 24%, 6.9%. I will probably be paying Amon-Ra and or Gibbs. Like, I've looked at nothing so far. That's kind of what I've been thinking this whole week. But so I don't want to just do that. I want to go look at running backs now. I'd imagine AJ Dillon's going to project well if AJ Jones is going to be out. I like him, but I know a lot of people don't like him. Shut up, Phil. Okay, so running back is tough this week. We've got CMC. People are going to be chasing those points. Loved him last week. Sadly, didn't get enough of him. Apparently, Chicago has a bad run defense for Rashad White. I'm not that into Rashad White. He is cheap, though. The only two cheap options I can really think of are Dillon if Jones is out, and then Moss if he becomes like the clear one for the Colts. And so I'm sure that's not in the projections yet. He's at 4,700. Oh, I love me some Pacheco, 3%. I knew the projections would hate him. He also is someone that we saw CEH take the first snap in that game, and like that's bad. And I had all the Pacheco last week, but Pacheco is clearly the best running back. McKinnon barely played, barely did anything. I also think that there's like this, and this is my bias, and I could just be so wrong here, but I think when teams lose, even if you have Mahomes, there's such a bias to run the ball and control the clock and run the ball and control the clock and run like. I think when teams lose, they get even more scared and they lean more into that, and so like they actually come out running more the next game. That's a wild take I have, I guess. But so I'm basically grading all the KC running backs better than what ETR is grading them. And I'm not like a projection wizard here. But you can see he still has a really high ceiling at 21, and he's only 5,700. That may be a way to get unique in that game, because I think everyone's going to be on ETN. He's only projecting for 13% ownership right now. That's going to come way up. He just was like a pure bell cow. And Bigsby didn't do that well. I think Bigsby also fumbled. I need to look at the stats. I don't know if he made. I know Bigsby did get some goal line carries, which is bad though. Yeah, so I like Pacheco. I like exposure to the Chiefs. I also like the Chiefs receivers here. And I guess I'll say my last favorite running back is James Cook. I think you can even pair him with Josh Allen. We did see Murray play some third downs, play some 2-minute. We did see Harris come in. But dude, Cook's just the best player. And again, they lost. This is my teams run it more after a loss theory. I'm really not trying to be too Galbraith here, but I would just slightly boost Cook's projection. He's also quite cheap. So let's take a look at receivers. Man, this is another tight pricing. Sometimes you see like 20 values. Ridley, he gets the bump from 6,500 to 7,200. Devontae is going to be a popular bring back against the Bills. Puka. I just think that team just still has risk. Like maybe Seattle's trash, and maybe Seattle's defense is trash. And I'm not saying that the 49ers defense is great, but I don't know. I just think that the Rams in general have a lot of risk. I don't really like Stafford, but maybe I'm just going to lose money fading the Rams. Jamar Chase had 9 targets last week despite dudding. I think a lot of people are going to try to Galbrain Debo, like, oh, Ayuk last week, all the fish go Ayuk again, I'll go Debo, and I'm smart. It's like, that's a very level 1 take, I feel like. Hopkins has an ankle, and Burks got a lot of targets, but didn't really do much with it. I will be playing Amon-Ra. My second favorite player in this little range here is probably Nico. And then probably Josh Reynolds. Very curious to see how ownership ends like on Saturday, because I'm not really buying everyone playing Josh Allen. So I don't know what that's going to do to Diggs. Yeah, so people are just thinking they're smarter than everyone playing Debo. Ayuk's only 200 more, and he basically projects the same. I can just see Ayuk just getting there again. That's kind of interesting. Drake London projects for dust. I guess Chase has the highest ceiling. Yeah, Chase has a 36-point ceiling, also with Devontae Adams. I think a sneaky stack is the Herbert to Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Mike Williams actually came down to 5,700. Those two just played way more snaps, and they both played slot, but they both played way more snaps than Palmer and Johnson. I bet tight end's going to be a shit show. 0 tight end values. Kelsey. I did see Kelsey jumping around in that clip, which is good. He isn't like the fastest player anymore. He just has such good field awareness and route running and just spatial awareness, getting his body open and on the field. I'm not sure he needs his knee 100%, but man, it's scary. Apparently they were like draining blood from his knee. I've had my knee drained before. It is awful. Man, tight end is just a dumpster fire. So that makes me either want to just not really care too much and just play a tight end with my quarterback. That makes me want to just punt it off. Laporta looks great because he's pretty cheap. He can be paired with a quarterback that I like. I did kind of like Irv Smith. He got a couple targets. I think he goose egged. Maybe he got 1 catch last week. And then I guess I'm going to monitor. Yeah, so Kincaid, 3,300. He's kind of like Jahmyr Gibbs to me, where like I think you want to be ahead of the market playing him. And then Noah Gray has to be watched if Kelsey's out. People surprisingly, like they'll play him in Showdown when Kelsey's out. He was 2,400, which is weird. But I don't know. Yeah, they only have Kelsey at 5. I don't think Gray's ownership would get out of control, even if Kelsey's out. 3,400. Let's see here. Okay. And lastly, I'm not going to do too much on defense right now because I'm waiting for the. So I basically do 3 things for defense. I want to do cheap. That's just obvious because I want to do cheap because I think the position's so volatile. And I think money's so tight, projections are so valuable, points per dollar so valuable. I'd rather take those savings, build a better rest of my roster. And then 2, just this kind of goes into 1, I just won't really play a super owned defense. I'll play the most owned defense if it's not super owned, but like I didn't play the Commanders at 30, 40, 50% yesterday or last week. And then lastly, and this is actually I have 2 more components. One is the D-line, O-line mismatch. That's actually quite predictive. it needs to be baked in more, I think, when people run defensive projections. I think they use like a lot of DVOA stuff. I'm not exactly sure what goes into the formula, but Thorman does a great job with D-line, O-line mismatches. And so trying to find some of those tend to work out really well. And then lastly, and this is just such a basic take, I just like to play bad quarterbacks because defensive scoring is much more about turnovers, which, yes, are a lot of variance and a lot of luck, but they're about turnovers and like sloppy play and passes and interceptions and scoring. And bad quarterbacks turn the ball over way more. And so, you know, playing against Josh Dobbs, against Baker Mayfield, against Ryan Tannehill, it gets a little bit dicey if they're like two pocket passery or they're like they don't make a turnovers or whatever. But it's like, don't really overthink it. Like if there's like a bottom 5, maybe the bottom 10, but definitely a bottom 5 quarterback, usually the defense against that team, I think, is going to do well. Yeah, so defense is a cluster this week. I think my initial look, I liked the Jets. I just don't think Dak's good. And I think their defense is amazing. I think their D-line is amazing. Dallas's O-line is good, but I liked the Jets and I liked the Bears because it's Baker Mayfield. The problem with the Bucks is they may not pass enough, and you kind of want passes to generate interceptions and sacks and such. But yeah, those are both cheap-ish, but I haven't really looked at anything else. So lastly, I know this is a super long first look video. I'm gonna go. Did I even? Hold on. I don't even think I showed that defensive tab. Anyway, you didn't see that. Sorry. I'm gonna go just like crunch some builds here. Who does it like as points per dollar? Usually it's the QBs, just how they're priced. We're not gonna play Tannehill or Gino. I guess I'll allow it. No, we're not gonna play him, and we're not gonna play Jimmy G. Who is the? It has Puka Nacua as the highest points per dollar play. That's not a quarterback. Rashad White, Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds is interesting. All right, so we're gonna sort by ceiling. We're gonna run 150. I guess Ridley's gonna be in this. Ridley or Chase is my guess. Yeah, there's Ridley. My next guess was Montgomery. Man, that first team is loaded. Josh Allen, Montgomery, Rashid White. So cheapish running backs here. God, Devonta and Ridley and Samuel. Team Alpha. Chig could have had a big game last week. Puka. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be even more high-owned than it is right now. This is kind of nice. I do this to then look at these numbers over here, kind of who's bubbling up to the top, and then kind of think about if I like them or not. And this is where I need to get better as a DFS player. I need to get better with leverage. I need to get better with building lineups. I need to get better about telling the story and when to use correlation, when not to use correlation, how to apply it appropriately to my field size. And I'm constantly playing small field to medium field to large field to small. Like I need to be more consistent with thinking about each lineup per each contest. Because yeah, like I'm trying to win here. So has Puka 99% of the lineups. That's fascinating. Top points per dollar player makes sense. Leverage there would be like a Kyron Williams, a Cam Akers, a 2-2, or just fading that, I guess, or like a 49ers defense. And, you know, Rashad White's pretty fragile too. Like he's just tied to I just am so down on Baker Mayfield. So, and he's someone who's also hard to project, right? Coming from a different team. The Bucks are just hard to project right now, right? New coaching staff, stuff like that. Devontae need to monitor his health. Ridley's nice. Ridley may be worth playing. I don't know if it makes sense to lean into Ridley and kind of like pair him with Lawrence and like get my QB to come along. Maybe add another piece from Jacksonville to have a unique element, like maybe pair him with ETN. Like who's gonna do ETN Ridley Lawrence? That's expensive, it's risky, but man, I think they're gonna put up a lot of points against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are gonna put up a lot of points against them. Let's see. Sometimes it doesn't give you this big of a player pool. And so I'll run some variants or like I'll start Xing out some people. Kincaid's interesting. Troutman, that's a no. Kittle's interesting. I think 49ers stacks are interesting. That's probably what I would do if I was going to play Puka. I would play like a 49ers stack and then bring it back with Puka. Trying to think who stands out here. Nico's pretty interesting. Nico had 11 targets. I know a lot of people talked about Robert Woods, who's actually priced very similarly. I think Nico has more upside. Woods may have like a better floor, maybe. James Conner, kind of interesting. Okay, so it does like Laporta, basically because it likes no tight end. So yeah, I don't want to keep tinkering. I think one of my mistakes is I'm too reliant on optimizers, and then I just like throw my team out the window, and I kind of just lean into like a cash build or like this kind of like random build where I change like one component. Because like so many people in the fields that I play are going to have this exact lineup or like very slight changes. And so I'm going to think on that. I'm going to do another video. Shout out Phil. Thanks for watching. Shout out Ryan.